You feel stuck because you avoid risk. Let me say that again. You feel stuck because you avoid risk. And I'm not talking about the kind of risk where you jump off a bridge or bet your life savings on a coin flip. I'm talking about the small, everyday risk of doing something different. The risk of trying when you might fail. The risk of looking foolish. The risk of being uncomfortable for a little while. You know that feeling when you're about to do something that makes you nervous. That tightness in your chest. That voice in your head telling you to wait, to think about it more. To just do it tomorrow. That's the moment. That's the exact moment where your life either changes or stays the same. And most of the time, you choose the same. You choose what's comfortable. You choose what's safe. And that choice, repeated over and over, day after day, is why you're stuck. Because here's what happens. Every time you avoid that small risk, you train yourself to keep avoiding it. Every time you choose comfort over growth, you make it easier to choose comfort again tomorrow, and the next day, and the day after that, until one day you wake up and realize you've been living the same year over and over for the last 5 years. Same problems, same frustrations, same life. And you wonder why nothing's changed. Nothing's changed because you haven't changed. And you haven't changed because you keep choosing safety over the possibility of something better. Now I want you to really think about your daily routine for a second. Think about how you spend your time. How much of your day is just autopilot? You wake up, you check your phone, you go through the same motions, you avoid the things that feel hard, you distract yourself with the things that feel easy, and then you go to sleep. And tomorrow you do it again. That's not living, that's existing. That's running in place. And deep down you know it. But here's the part that most people don't want to hear. You're choosing this. You're choosing to stay stuck, not consciously, maybe, but through your actions. You're voting for the life you have right now. Every time you hit snooze instead of getting up. Every time you scroll instead of working on that thing you said you'd work on. Every time you say you'll start tomorrow, you're choosing this. And the reason you're choosing it is because change requires risk. Change requires you to do something you're not sure will work. It requires you to be uncomfortable. It requires you to look stupid for a while. And your brain hates that. Your brain wants you safe. Your brain wants you comfortable. Your brain wants you to do what you did yesterday because yesterday you survived. But survival isn't the same as growth. Survival isn't the same as progress. And if you want a different life, you have to be willing to take the small risks that lead to it. So let's talk about what that actually looks like. Because I'm not telling you to quit your job and move to another country tomorrow. I'm not telling you to make some massive, life-altering decision right now. I'm talking about the small stuff. The stuff that doesn't feel like a big deal but compounds over time. Number 1, you have to start doing the things you know you should be doing but keep putting off. You know what they are. Everyone does. Maybe it's reaching out to someone about a job opportunity. Maybe it's starting that project you've been thinking about for months. Maybe it's having a difficult conversation you've been avoiding. Maybe it's just going to the gym. You know what it is. And you know you're not doing it. And the reason you're not doing it is because there's a small risk involved. The risk that it won't work out the way you hoped. The risk that you'll feel uncomfortable. The risk that you'll have to put in effort without a guaranteed result. So you avoid it. You tell yourself you'll do it when you're ready. When you feel more motivated. When the timing is better. But the timing is never better. You're just waiting for the discomfort to go away. And it never does. So here's what you do. You do it anyway. You do it while it's uncomfortable. You do it before you feel ready. Because the only way to get past the fear of doing something is to do it. You can't think your way out of fear. You can't wait for courage to show up. You just have to move. And once you move, once you take that first step, it gets easier. Not easy. Easier. There's a difference. Number 2, you have to stop waiting for perfect conditions. This is a big one. So many people are stuck because they're waiting for everything to line up before they start. They're waiting for more time, more money, more knowledge, more confidence, more support. They're waiting for the perfect moment. And while they're waiting, years go by. Here's the truth. The perfect moment doesn't exist. There will always be something in the way. There will always be a reason not to start. And if you wait for all the obstacles to disappear, you'll wait forever. The people who aren't stuck, the people who are actually moving forward, they're not smarter than you. They're not more talented. They don't have better circumstances. They just started before they were ready. They took the risk of beginning with what they had. And then they figured it out along the way. That's how it works. You don't figure it out and then start. You start, and then you figure it out. But starting requires risk. It requires you to be okay with not knowing how it's all going to turn out. And most people can't handle that, so they stay stuck. Number 3, you have to get comfortable with failure. And I don't mean you have to enjoy failing. I mean you have to stop treating failure like it's the end of the world. Because right now, that's what you're doing. You're so afraid of failing that you won't even try. You'd rather stay stuck than risk looking foolish or making a mistake. But think about what that means. It means you're letting the fear of a bad outcome control your entire life. It means you're giving up on possibilities because you can't guarantee success. And that's insane. That's how you end up at 40 or 50 or 60, looking back and realizing you never even tried. You never gave yourself a chance. Because you were too afraid of what might happen if it didn't work. Here's what you need to understand. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of success. Everyone who's ever done anything worthwhile has failed along the way. The difference is they didn't let it stop them. They failed, they learned, they adjusted, and they kept going. But you can't learn if you never tried. You can't adjust if you never start. And you can't succeed if you're too afraid to fail. So you have to change your relationship with failure. You have to see it as information, not as a judgment on your worth. You tried something, it didn't work. Now you know. Now you try something else. That's the game. That's how progress happens. And it only works if you're willing to take the risk of being wrong. Number 4, you have to take responsibility for where you are. This is hard. This is the part people hate, because it's easier to blame circumstances. It's easier to say you're stuck because of your job, your family, your past, your environment, your lack of resources. And maybe those things are true. Maybe they do make things harder. But they don't make it impossible. And as long as you're focused on what's in your way, you're not focused on what you can do. The people who get unstuck, they stop making excuses. They stop waiting for the world to change. They look at what they can control, and they start there. And yeah, maybe they don't have much control. Maybe their options are limited, but they use what they have. They take the small risks available to them. And slowly, those small risks add up. Because here's the thing. Even if you can only control 5% of your situation, that 5% still matters. That 5% can still move you forward. But most people don't use it. They're so focused on the 95% they can't control that they waste the 5% they can. And then they wonder why nothing changes. You have more control than you think. You have more options than you think. But you won't see them until you stop blaming everything else and start asking yourself, what can I do right now, today, with what I have? And then you do it. Even if it doesn't feel like enough, you do it anyway. Number 5, you have to build momentum. This is where most people quit. They take one step, they don't see immediate results, and they stop. They go back to what's comfortable. They tell themselves it's not working, and they give up. But momentum doesn't work like that. Momentum builds slowly. You don't take one risk and suddenly everything changes. You then another, and then another. And at first, it feels like nothing's happening. You're putting in effort, you're doing the work, and you don't see progress. So you think it's pointless. But it's not pointless, it's compounding. Every small risk you take, every uncomfortable thing you do, it's adding up. You just can't see it yet. It's like pushing a boulder up a hill. At first, it's hard, it barely moves. But if you keep pushing, eventually it starts to roll. And once it's rolling, it gets easier. But you have to push through that first part. You have to keep going even when it doesn't feel like it's working. You have to trust that the small risks you're taking today will pay off later. Because they will, but only if you don't quit. And this is where discipline comes in. Because motivation doesn't last. You're not going to feel like doing this every day. Some days you're going to want to quit. Some days you're going to wonder if it's worth it. And on those days you have to do it anyway. Not because you feel like it, but because you decided to. Because you committed. Because you know that consistency is what creates change. You do it when it's hard. You do it when you're tired. You do it when you don't see results yet. You do it because that's what it takes. And over time, it gets easier. Over time, the momentum builds. Over time, you look back and realize how far you've come. But it starts with the decision to keep going. It starts with the willingness to take the risk over and over, even when it's uncomfortable. Number 6, you have to protect your time and energy. Because here's what happens. You decide you're going to change. You're going to take those risks. You're going to do the work, and then life gets in the way. People want your time. Distractions pull you off track. You get busy with things that don't matter. And before you know it, the day's over, and you didn't do anything that moves you forward. This is why most people stay stuck. Not because they don't want to change, but because they let everything else take priority. They say yes to things they should say no to. They waste time on things that don't matter. They let other people's priorities become their priorities. And then they wonder why they never make progress. If you want to get unstuck, you have to guard your time. You have to be intentional about how you spend your energy. You have to say no to the things that keep you comfortable, and yes to the things that challenge you. And that's a risk, because people won't always understand. People will expect you to stay the same. And when you start changing, they'll push back. But you have to do it anyway. You have to protect the time you need to work on yourself. You have to create space for the things that matter. And you have to be okay with disappointing people who want you to stay small. Because staying small to make others comfortable is just another way of avoiding risk, and it keeps you stuck. Number 7, you have to redefine what success looks like. Most people are stuck because they're measuring success the wrong way. They're looking for the big win, the big breakthrough, the moment where everything clicks and life suddenly gets easy. And because they don't see that, they think they're failing. But that's not how it works. Success isn't a destination. It's a direction. It's not about reaching some final goal. It's about making progress. It's about being better today than you were yesterday. It's about taking the small risks that move you forward, even if you can't see the finish line yet. And when you redefine success that way, everything changes. Because now you're not waiting for some huge transformation. You're celebrating the small wins. You got up early. You did the work. You had the hard conversation. You took the risk. That's success. That's progress. And when you start seeing it that way, it becomes easier to keep going. Because you're not stuck anymore. You're moving. Maybe slowly. Maybe just a little bit each day. But you're moving. And that's what matters. So let's bring this back to you right now. Today, you're stuck, and you're stuck because you avoid risk. You avoid the discomfort. You avoid the uncertainty. You avoid the possibility of failing. And in doing that, you're choosing to stay where you are. But you don't have to. You can make a different choice right now. Today, you can take one small risk. You can do one thing you've been avoiding. You can take one step in a different direction. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be something. Because here's what happens when you take that first step. It proves to yourself that you can. It breaks the pattern. It starts the momentum. And once you take one step, the next one gets easier. And the one after that gets easier. And slowly, over time, you stop being stuck. You stop avoiding risk. You stop playing it safe. And you start becoming the person you've been avoiding becoming. But it requires a decision. And that decision is this. Are you willing to be uncomfortable for a little while in exchange for a better life? Are you willing to take the small risks that lead to change? Are you willing to fail, to look stupid, to not have all the answers in order to move forward? Because if you're not, nothing I say will matter. You'll stay stuck. You'll keep avoiding risk. You'll keep choosing comfort. And 5 years from now, you'll be in the same place, wondering why nothing's changed. But if you are willing, if you're ready to take that first step, then everything changes. Not overnight, not all at once, but over time, little by little, risk by risk, step by step. You don't need permission. You don't need the perfect plan. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to start. And starting is a choice. Your choice. So what's it going to be? Are you going to keep avoiding risk and stay stuck? Or are you going to take the first step today? Now you decide.